Hello everybody, welcome to Mathethics original channel. Thank you for watching our videos. Please don't forget to like, share and subscribe. In today's video, we will be adding and subtracting polynomials. But before we do that, it is important to understand what is a polynomial. I have a brief definition here about polynomial, saying a polynomial is an expression containing numbers and variables and raised to a positive exponent connected only through basic operation of algebra. When we say basic operation of algebra, we simply mean plus or adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing. These are the four basic operations of algebra. We add, we subtract, we multiply, and we divide. And also, in that definition, we understand that a polynomial is anything that have numbers, variables or letters, and a positive exponent. Okay, so a polynomial cannot have a negative exponent. It has to have a positive exponent. Okay, so for instance, there is numbers. Let's take 3 for example. It's a number. All right, 3 is a number, so it's a part of a polynomial. It could be 10, it could be 100, any numbers you want to choose. We also have variable. Let's use the popular one, x. It could be z, it could be y. So for variable. Now, when this number, when it stands by itself, it is called a constant. Okay? When this number is by itself, it is called a constant. Okay? And the letter is called a variable. Okay? So that number by itself called a constant and the letters called a variable. Now, if I put the 3 and the x together, like 3x, this 3 now is no longer a constant. It is called a coefficient. Okay? This is the coefficient of x. Every time you have a number attached to a letter, the number is the coefficient of the variable. Okay? So, exponent. Now, you can have x to the second power. So where 2 is your exponent. Okay, 2 is your exponent. This number right here, when the number is above the variable, is called exponent. Okay, called exponent. Okay, so if the number is by itself, it is called a constant, and the letters is the variable. Now, if the number is in front of the letter, so that's called a coefficient. So in this case, 3 is the coefficient of x. To make it more interesting, let me change this to 3. Okay, so I'm going to change this to 3. Now, you see, in this case, 3 is a constant. Okay, here on the first example here, 3 is a constant. Now, x is the variable. Now, if I put them together, put 3 in front of x, now 3 is the coefficient. 3 is the coefficient of x. And if I put 3 above, like right here, above x, that means 3 is the exponent. Now, the exponent can be anything. It could be 2, it could be 5, it could be 100. But as long as it is positive, okay? So I cannot put a negative 3 or a negative 2 or a negative 5. The minute I do a negative number for exponent, I no longer have a polynomial. So polynomial must have positive exponent. And we can also have all 3 together. You can have a number here. Let's say we have 5x to the 7th power. Notice I have a number, a variable, and an exponent all together, right? So it's possible. That's still a polynomial on its own. So in this case, we will say that 5 will be coefficient, not constant, with coefficient, okay? It's only constant if there was no variable. Because it's attached to a variable, then it is a coefficient. And x is your variable, and then 7 is your exponent, okay? So they can all be together. Now, all this in polynomial, they call them term, okay? They have terms, okay? So what is a term? So what is a term? So I have this definition here. A term is a number or a product of a number and variables raised to a power. So the term can be just a number by itself, like 3, 10, or it can be a variable, x, y, or it could be a number with a variable, like 3x, 7y, and it could be a variable raised to a power, and it could be all together, okay? So a term can be any of those, okay? So what is important about term of polynomial? Terms of polynomial are separated by the sign plus or minus, okay? So multiplication or division does not separate terms, okay? So notice over here, for instance, 3x, we could also say 3 times x. So that's the multiplication, but it will still be considered as one term, okay? So 5x to the 7th power. So 5x to the 7th power is considered as one term, okay? Even though 5 times x to the 7th power. So the fact that there is no plus or minus sign in none of them, then it's considered as a term, okay? Terms of a polynomial, this is very important. Terms of a polynomial are separated by plus and minus, okay? Plus and minus. Now, so why term is important? When you're dealing with polynomial, there are different types of polynomial. One type of polynomial you have is what they call a monomial, okay? So it's what they call a monomial. Another one is what they call a binomial. And a third one is what they call a trinomial. Okay, so what is the difference between monomial, binomial, and trinomial? Now, remember we just talked about terms of a polynomial. So a monomial is a one-term polynomial. Okay, a monomial have only one term. So a monomial have one term. Okay, for instance, you can say, well, 3 is one term. 3 is a monomial, right? X is one term. So x is a monomial. 3x, okay? 3x, there is no plus or minus. So that's considered as one term. So that's a monomial. X cubed, there is no plus and minus. That's considered as one term. So that's a monomial. 5x to the 7th power, there is no plus or minus. That's also a monomial. Okay? So, if you have one term, that's a monomial. Now, a binomial in itself have two terms. A binomial have two terms. Okay? So, for instance, if I have 3x plus 5, right? So notice here, you got 3x, and then you got 5. What's separate 3x and 5 is that plus sign. That plus sign is what is important here. The plus sign right here, that's what makes this a binomial. If you only got one plus sign, then that's a binomial. Okay? So another example. If I have x cubed do that. If I have a x squared minus 2x, x squared minus 2x, that's a binomial. Okay, so that's a binomial because it's separated by a minus sign. If there was a plus or a minus sign, then it's considered as term. So that is one term. That is one term, and that is another term. The first term is x squared. The second term is 2x. And over here, that is one term, and that is another term. The first term is 3x, and the second term is 5. Okay, so that's how I know that's two terms. Okay, monomial have one term, binomial have two terms. So that makes trinomial tri for triangle. Every time you see tri, you see 3. So trinomial got 3 terms. 3 terms. So, example. If I have if I have 4x squared, quick example, 4x squared plus 2x minus 3. Notice here, I got my first term here. I got my first term, which is 4x squared. There is no plus, so that's one term. Then boom, I got a plus sign. That means I'm going to switch to another term. So once you hit the plus sign or minus sign, you're switching to another term, okay? So I got a plus sign, so I'm switching to another term. So I got my second term right here, 2x, boom. Then I hit a negative sign, so that's when I'm switching to another term. So my other term will be 3. So that's 3 terms, okay? So every time you see you have a plus or a minus sign, that's telling you're switching to another term, okay? So a trinomial is a polynomial with 3 terms, okay? So we got monomial, 1 term, binomial, 2 term, and trinomial, 3 terms. The other thing I want to talk about is the degree of the polynomial. Now, the degree of a polynomial is simply the exponent. Okay, the degree means exponent. Okay, so degree means exponents. For instance, if I have x to the third power, so the exponent here is 3. Right, the exponent is 3, which means 3 is the degree. 3 is the degree. Okay, now when you're referring to the degree of the polynomial, the degree of the polynomial is the highest exponent on that polynomial. Okay, so the degree of a polynomial is the biggest exponent in that polynomial. For instance, a monomial is just one term, right? It's just one term. Let's say if we go back to the monomial, let's go to the examples that we had. For instance, 3. The degree of 3 will be 0, okay? So you only have exponent if you have variables, okay? In the polynomial, you only have exponent if you have variables, because that's algebraic expression. So every time you have a number by itself, that means your exponent is 0. 3 have no variable, so that's means exponent is 0. X have no exponent. If you have a variable with no number, with no exponent, that's when the exponent is 1. If you have a variable with no exponent, that means the exponent is 1. Again, if you have a number stand by itself, the exponent is 0. And if you have a variable with no exponent, the exponent is 1. So, if we go back, the degree of this polynomial is 0. The degree of this monomial is 1. Okay, the degree of this monomial is 0. The degree of this monomial is 1. And the degree of this monomial 3x. So it's one term and the x have nothing. So the highest exponent here is 1. Okay. So the degree of this monomial here is 1. The degree of this monomial is 3. The degree of this monomial is 7. Okay, so that's for this monomial. Now let's go to binomial now. Binomials have two terms. What is the degree of this binomial? So notice we have a variable here, so that's when the exponent here is 1, and then we have a number by itself. Okay, so when there is a number by itself, the exponent is 0. So 1 is bigger than 0, so the degree of this whole binomial is 1, the highest degree. Okay, the highest exponent is the degree of the polynomial. So the degree of this binomial is 1 because the first term is 1 and the second term is 0. So 1 is bigger than 0, so that's make it 1. Now for the second one, x squared minus 2x. The degree of the first term is 2 and the degree of the second term is 1. Okay, because remember, if there is nothing with the variable, so the exponent is 1. So 2 is bigger than 1, therefore the degree of this binomial is 2. Now let's check the trinomial. Trinomial has 3 terms. So we got here 4x squared plus 2x minus 3. The first term, the degree of the first term is 2. And the degree of the second term is 1. And the degree of the third term is 0. So 2 is bigger than 1 and 0. So that's make the degree of the polynomial to be 2. Okay. So the degree of any polynomial, is the highest exponent on that polynomial. It doesn't matter where that exponent locate. The highest exponent in that polynomial is the degree of that polynomial. So that's all I have for today video. So hopefully that's helpful. Now we're ready to talk about adding and subtracting polynomials. So stay tuned for another video about adding and subtracting polynomial. So I'm gonna have a different video for that. And again, thank you for watching this video. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Stay tuned for the next video.